All right, the final presentation. Anchorman bringing us home. No pressure, man.
First sector, we're
Shawn
doing really
Wallace.
good.
9 minutes. So I don't run.
Belly dance.
Skydive?
My belly might dance from time to time in the right outfit.
Beer and chips.
Sadly, I'm the last talk, and I'm not funny, and I don't have any jokes. I might make some up as I go. But I used to have a football coach, and he used to tell me, he always say, you don't get better at your job by doing your job. And the reality is that if you did, we wouldn't have to have practices. We could just play the games. And the more that we play games, we would just get better and better and better. Does that make sense? But we do have practices. In fact, did you know that a pro football player has the same number of hours in practice in the first week of camp as he does in games for the entire year? Pretty interesting. And they have 5 or 6 weeks of camp. In fact, military units, when they're deployed, and I know this is really getting high, really awesome and taking the room down a little bit, but military units, when they deploy, their actual operational effectiveness is as least level right before they come home. All right, so they're doing their job very intensely all the time. We're operating at a high level, and they are the worst at doing their job. And you get some experience while you're there, and that brings up your level. But essentially, right before you come home, you're the worst at doing your job. The United States Marine Corps figured this out a long time ago. If you notice, in Iraq and Afghanistan, a Marines deployment is going to be about 7 months, where the Army will deploy between 13 and 18 months, which is crazy. I was in the Marine Infantry, and all of our deployments were no longer than 6 months, back when I was around. And in fact, they call it when you deploy too long or too much. It's not you can get PTSD, but they say you have the 1,000-yard stare. And you see these guys on the right. This is a famous painting in the bottom right-hand corner called the 1,000-yard stare. And then this is a famous picture now on the top of a young corporal who had that 1,000-yard stare. And it's your operational effectiveness is down because you've been doing your job for so long at a high level. You might be good at it, but you're going to be less good at it towards the end than you were at the beginning. I used to have some drill instructors that always used to quote Thucydides. You'd think that these old Marines would be quoting Greek philosophers. But basically this quote says, we must remember that one man is much the same as another, and that he is best who was trained in a severe school. What this means is the guy that does the training, that spends the time not doing his job, but getting better at doing his job by doing other things, is the guy that's going to be better. All men are equal, but the guy that works hardest, doing the hardest tasks, getting ready to do their job, is the one that's going to be best. All right? Now, we're going to talk about a couple of things now. I'm not trying to cure, diagnose, treat anything. If you're an alcoholic, there's nothing that we're going to talk about that's going to make you not be an alcoholic or give you any tools to get better at not being an alcoholic. But we're going to talk about a few things that might help us get better, not just at our job, but at some of the other things that we deal with. Anybody ever heard of the concept of deliberate practice? Deliberate practice, there's a few principles of deliberate practice. Basically, we take a training regimen for whatever it is. I'm a technologist, I'm a developer, I do code katas. I sit down, and some of you, I've done them live in front of some of you folks before. We sit down and we go through a simple problem and to do a task, and the idea is to get a measurable result, to do something over and over and over again, and be able to know if I did a good job. And I know that I get a little bit better each time, and I have drills. It's practice, right? It's doing things, not that's my job. I'm not sitting down writing an application for Grange Insurance. I'm sitting down and solving for Fibonacci numbers over and over and over again. And it makes me better at writing insurance applications for Grange Insurance. Now, those principles apply to football. I practice at football, I get better. I do immediate action drills as a Marine Corps, as a Marine, I get better at reacting to things that happen. I do katas, I get better at code. I go to training, I get better at at project management or as being a BA. But do these principles apply to life? Can I deliberate practice life to become a better person? Are there things that I can do to get better? You know, we read lots of books all the time, but in the concept of deliberate practice, are there things that I can do in my daily course, in the way that I conduct my life, that I can do several short, simple things that are measurable and that tell me that I'm making progress and getting better, and that I can know that that in fact is the case. You guys know who this guy is, right? Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin was truly a Renaissance man. He invented electricity, right? It didn't exist before him. No, he was a scientist, he was a philosopher, he was a statesman, he's a founder of our country, was not a president. Some people are surprised to know. When Ben Franklin was 20, he wanted to come up. He was not satisfied with where he was as a person. And so he came up with a set of what he called virtues. Have you guys ever heard of Ben Franklin's 13 virtues? He came up with 13 things that he could deliberately practice periodically that would make him better at what he did. And this is a long-winded way of saying I came up with 13 things that I wanted to be, and I was going to hold them as my virtues. And that brings us kind of another discussion. So Ben Franklin wanted to pick some number of things that he could practice that he could be better at. He called them virtues. I call them values. Your values are the principles or standards of behavior. They are the things that you say are important, that you're valuable. They're unique to you. You have values. Sometimes we want other values, but you can tell. I can tell what your values are by how you act and the kind of a person you are. And I can tell if you're a hardworking person and you get your work done on time. I can tell that you value hard work, that you have that trait in and of yourself. Values can shape the quality of your life. If I violate my values, I feel bad. If I do something against how I want to be, I feel bad. And I apologize for it being 10 o'clock on Thursday night that we're hearing a values talk, but it's not really a values talk. We'll get to it here in a second. But if we concentrate on our values, they can make me feel better about my life. I can concentrate and spend time working on my value system, and nobody else can affect it. I don't have to worry about anybody else to tell me I'm doing a good job. I don't have to be, as Lisa was talking about earlier, actualized by another person. I can figure out if I'm doing a good job at this, and therefore I can feel good. I don't have to say I want to make $1 million because I'm really not that much in control of that. There are a lot of things at play, but I can say I want to be honest, and I can be totally in control of that and feel good at the end of the day. These are Ben Franklin's virtues. He has little discussions. So you see the kind of things that he found important. Knowing his reputation, and chastity is one of his virtues. Ben Franklin was a notorious womanizer throughout his entire life. He lived into his 80s. He spent however many years in France negotiating the peace at the end of the Revolutionary War, and it's legendary how much of a womanizer he was. So Ben Franklin wasn't necessarily good at all of the things that he considered virtuous, or the things that he wanted to practice in his life. What he did was, is he would take a period of time, and I believe it was a week at a time, and he would say, this week I'm going to practice being frugal. He's going to take one value, and he's going to practice that value for that week, and he's going to concentrate on frugality, on honesty. He's going to concentrate on that value, deliberately practicing that value. The next week he picks up the next one. Now, does that mean he's going to forget all about being honest or frugal the week before? No. He's changed himself a little bit, and he can measure himself by it. I heard a talk that was similar to this by a guy named Terry McGiffin, who's a great man. He's a trainer, used to be a trainer for OCLC, and he introduced me to this concept in my 20s, and I've tried to practice it ever since. And I actually came up with my own set of values. And sometimes the values that, most of you that know me know that I'm not very good at most of these things. But I practice them. I remember a week ago, I was working on honesty, and I had a problem at the client, and I could have easily gone back to my desk, made it all go away, and nobody would none the wiser. And I thought, nope, I need to be transparent. I need to be open. I need to say, hey, we've got this problem. You might see this in a log sometime later. I'm going to take care of this, and we'll know it's there, not happening again. So I got a little better that day. Sometimes, we're not getting into a discussion of what are good values, and sometimes in my values list you might see a skill, and you might say that's not a value. The important thing here is that we pick something, or pick a set of things, potentially, maybe this will help you, maybe it won't, that you can deliberately practice, that I can try to be reliable, and I'm going to be concentrating on this week doing the things that I said I'm going to do, or the things that I've been asked to do. In fact, this week I am on reliability, which is interesting since there's like a buttload of RFPs out there to take care of right now. So it seems like so that's kind of my list up there. I put a heavy weight on being good at what I do, and trying to be the best at what I am, but not trying to be something that I'm not. What's interesting about your values is that lots of times there's a value that you wish that you had, right? So I can add it to my list and say, I'm not very honest, but I want to be. And maybe I can change who I am or the kind of person I am by deliberately practicing honesty for a day or a week, and then moving on to something else. So I believe that you can apply deliberate practice to your life. And, trying to practice things like being joyful and being happy and being an encourager, I think it's made my life better. I think I've enjoyed it, enjoy the work. I enjoy having something that I can measure, and I enjoy doing something and being something that I want to be that I wasn't before, or that's something I want to be better at. So I think that if you could take you could apply Ben Franklin's or your own 13 virtues or principles or values to your life. Deliberately practice those by spending a day, a week, at a time. And I think you can maybe take some steps to be that person that you want to be, without having anybody else have to tell you that you're good, or that you're good enough and you're smart enough. Only that you know that you take the practice and that you can measure what you've done. There are a couple of references that you have, if you care. A link about deliberate practice and the 13virtues.com.